up with a panel that I get to host with more of my friends. We have Brian Hutchinson, Winslow Porter, Amanda Poole here today. We're going to be talking about unlocking immersive brand activations, basically how to bring brands on board and gain their trust, awareness, education, and get them to spend money in this medium. So welcome, guys.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Hello. So as always, let's just start with introductions for those of us that don't know who you are and what you do. Brian, let's start with you.
So Brian Hutchinson, I'm the VP of the Production Services Group at the Mars Agency. So we're a global agency representing CPGs and retailers all around the world.
Awesome. Amanda.
Hi, Amanda Poole. I am the Director of Events and Experience for XLA, which is a new DAO in Los Angeles that we'll talk about.
Awesome. And Winslow.
Hey everyone, my name is Winslow Porter. I'm here in Brooklyn, and I am one of the co-founders of New Reality Company. We did an immersive project called Tree, and I'm also one of the co-founders of a company called Forager, where we're doing volumetric mushroom time-lapse capture experiences.
That's cool. That sounds really cool. We'll have to hear about that later. So, we brought you guys on because you've all been through trying to get brands onboarded to immersive technology strategies for years. So what has been the sentiment and appetite for these technologies in the earlier days versus where we're at now?
Ooh, that's a good question. Who wants to start?
I'll start. I look back just 5 years ago. I was attending a lot of industry summits and things like that. And this was before, WebXR really became a thing. And that was one of the big challenges when it came to brands really activating in the AR space. So let's talk about augmented reality just for a second. But when you are asking, and we're a commerce agency, so we work with brands in how to help sell their product. So how do we create experiences that can help drive traffic to retail? Well, if you're a brand and you're at a retailer, asking a shopper to stop their trip to download an app to activate an augmented reality experience isn't going to happen. And so, when you had WebXR come on board, and you can get from a scan of a QR code directly into an experience in 3 seconds, you removed a lot of barriers. You made it seamless and frictionless, and that's what brands were craving. That's what was one of the missing links. When you're looking at, how do we make this experience pleasurable for that end user, for the shopper, for the consumer? That's one of the key ingredients. And I think once it became based, that's what unlocked the power.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about reducing friction for both the creator and the user also. So absolutely, I agree with you. Winslow, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's also a cultural thing. And unfortunately, I think that some of this is very much about how buzz is driven. A lot of it's how media handles new advancements in technology, because, a lot of us who worked in the VR space witnessed that firsthand, that there was all this buzz, and because there's buzz, unfortunately, I work more on the content production side of things. The United States doesn't really have many good arts organizations for funding content. Oftentimes it's brands, specifically tech companies, that will do it. And that's really nice when something's on the up and up from a buzz perspective. These waves, and you get out there, you paddle on your board and you try to catch that wave, and a lot of companies do. And you sort of have to wait for these waves to come in, because unfortunately VR kind of crested from a funding perspective in about late 2018, 2019. But then there was AR that came out, and there's new technology, and then there's a lot more interest, a lot more investment going in that space. And what's nice about these waves is that they push the boundaries of what is possible, both from a tech and content perspective. But unfortunately, because they don't always meet, say, like a Goldman Sachs report of what it was supposed to do from a earnings perspective, people forget it. But the technology is still being developed sort of on the side, And after, AR, VR, then there was a big push for cryptocurrency and then NFTs. And now it's very much, about AI and metaverse. And what's nice is that it comes back. So there's a new wave of VR that's starting to form. It's a lot less expensive. And so brands are starting to get, involved in it again. And, with what happened with the first, introduction of WebXR, it also unfortunately had a little bit of a crash, but the technology proves that it works. People have compelling experiences with it. Brands have proven to have interesting and, entertaining activations. So it will come back again, with even more gusto, with more understanding and more cultural awareness. And that's really what needs to happen. People need to be aware of how it can impact their lives and why it's better to be doing something new versus what they're familiar with. And yeah, we're riding another wave, and I'm curious to see how far this will go and the new waves that will come up after that.
Awesome.
I'm going to feed what you're saying, honestly. For me, I think all along the way, it's been about education, educating everyone on platforms, on technology that they didn't understand how it could benefit their brand. So really trying to take the integration of storytelling, technology, and brand awareness and bring it all to one platform is interesting. So you can't just stop. You can't. It continues to grow. So how do you continue to educate? We're going through that right now with LA. Brand awareness is a huge thing right now as we introduce who we are. So how do we do that? How do we get brands aware to merge into Web3? How do we disrupt again without disrupting? We all know where it's going to go. We all know the technology isn't going to leave us, and the blockchain is growing. So I think our initiative was to say, how do we take every IP content creator out there that's doing anything in the technology space and learn how to utilize it best and understand how you can utilize it best for yourself and for your brands and for your businesses and for the culture around you. It's just a constant wheel that's moving right now, and it's moving so fast that people are like, oh, it's just a fad, it's going to go away. And that's just because it hasn't gotten its footing all the way. We saw this in VR in 2014 and 15. Winslow, you were right there next to me at Sundance Film Festival when we put Tuscany in the room, and it was horrible. And everybody wanted to play it because it was new. It was innovative. It was an experience that they didn't understand. So they're like, wait a minute, how can we use this technology for our best interest and for our brand awareness? And once we started to teach that on stages like NAB and IBC, we saw the stronghold of brands in the immersive experiences take off. We saw that for a few years. You guys were all right there with me. We saw this at CES with other big, product launches and things that people were educating on. And now we're taking it a step further in blockchain technology. And this is going to be a big, big roadblock for some people because, one, you have to educate on blockchain technology. You have to educate on smart contracts. I'm not going to say the N word. I'm going to say the word digital assets, valuable digital assets that are going to have utility, that are going to have a purpose for using them. I'm going to say this now. I'm going to say it 1,000 more times. There's, to me, only two things that give a digital asset value, and that's people and movement. So join the people, join the movement.
Awesome.
Educate.
Yeah, absolutely. I was right there with you. One of my first experiences in VR was with you at your lounge and at Sundance. So appreciate you for that.
Yes.
You were educating me too.
You brought me a sandwich at CES. You fed me, and I've been best friends with you ever since.
Okay, so what have been some of the developments then in either like the adoption and awareness curve or the technology itself that have made it easier to transition to immersive technologies? And, how is that part of the value prop for when you're talking to clients?
I mean, from my perspective, when you are talking with clients and brands about what are the types of experiences that we want to create, I'll use this example. We do a lot of, in-store merchandising, those displays that you see at Walmart and Target and things like that, have product on display, but there's a limit to what can be communicated on that display. There's only so much graphic real estate for copy and for visuals. And, this is where, we can bring print to life, where you can do that additional storytelling that you can't get done. Oftentimes there's a lot more story that you want to tell, but you don't have the space to do it. And this is where the power of, immersive technologies, XR, AR, the metaverse, they can all play a role in how do brands tell their story in new and exciting ways. And the one thing that I'm probably most excited about, and what we're seeing brands respond to, is the social element, right? So, we have been creating augmented reality experiences. They've been fantastic. But once you bring in the element of that social, element with how you can share experiences with other people in the metaverse platforms, that becomes really exciting as well. Not only that, but even how brands can, the one thing I tell, our clients is, those simple wearables, those NFT wearables that you can create. While we're creating the campaign, and while the campaign may have a limited time frame, those wearable NFTs, they last forever. And that's something that needs to be talked about and educated about, is what are the unintended consequences of innovation when you see what when someone does something, but then you think, how can I do it better? Or did you think about it in this aspect? And you can create better and better experiences. And this is where you have to be afraid, not afraid to fail, unafraid to test and learn. And now is the right time to be doing it, where the relative risk is low for brands to enter into the space. And the longer that you wait, the greater the risk becomes.
Absolutely. And what are so going back to just this good brand strategy, regardless of immersive technology, like what are like kind of the key aspects to driving that good brand strategy? And then looking forward of incorporating immersive technology, like how does that fit into just the general principles of what creates a good strategy?
So we have a principle that we use at the Mars Agency, and it's one that we put into practice, and it's called the NEI principle. So it stands for navigation, education, and inspiration. So navigation is where you're helping the shopper navigate from point A to point B. It could be from a physical display to a digital destination. It could be a digital destination that you're trying to get them to another point. Education is all about that additional storytelling, educating the shopper on, what benefits the product has, doing that, storytelling. And then inspiration. What are some of the additional usage occasions? How can I help? How does the brand, impact my family? What are some of the, what's the sustainability story behind the brand? What is the thing we want the shopper to be, walk away from the purchasing experience and understand what the brand stands for? Those are all important things. And every single experience, whether it's an NFT, an augmented reality experience, anything immersive, you don't do technology for technology's sake. It has to ladder up to one or more of those principles. Navigation, education, inspiration. If it doesn't, don't do it.
Love it.
Yeah, I think also it's important, like the word authenticity can be used or gets thrown around a lot, but I think that customers are a lot smarter than many brands give them credit. And if something doesn't feel like it works, if something feels forced, and again, Brian, like you're saying, technology for technology's sake, it just won't last. In fact, it might make the brands look a lot worse. Fortunately for them, not a lot of people will probably see a lot of their experiences that they put out right now, because it's still such a new space, and there is more room for them to make mistakes because it's not a real world application, and so there's less eyes on it. But that's slowly laddering up to getting more people interested. But I think it's important for brands to understand that this technology has been around for a while, and to the people who love it and want it to succeed, people who are fostering it, they need to lean into those people because they've been here, they understand the space, they understand how it will grow. And so there's these communities that need to be considered, and really, like, it can't just be for a marketing, it can't just be for a headline. It really needs to be something that's more long term. What are not just a one-time pop-up activation, but what are these companies' long-term strategies, and how can they be communicating their brand messaging and ideals and previous campaigns into something that feels, again, authentic? And that's not easy to do because it's such a new space. So I think that a careful consideration of that, and not being tone deaf as well, is something that is like will get a brand pretty far. And also being self-aware, not taking themselves too seriously because the space is so new. There's I think some people think that their product or their experience is going to change everyone's perception, is going to change the world because they put a certain amount of money behind it. They have certain expectations, but I think taking a step back and understanding that, that it's still so experimental, and being okay with maybe not, hitting a home run at their first attempt, but thinking of, again, what is the 2, 3 year, 10-year strategy in their goal, and who are the partners that they can work with to make that happen is super important.
Definitely.
I agree. Yeah, I love that. We were just talking about that 1 to 5 to 20-year strategy at iHollywood Film Festival last week. So it's interesting that you say that. When I would approach brands, and when I do approach brands, and I think my perspective has obviously shifted post-pandemic. Before the pandemic, I would say that we would approach the brands to build the experience as to how kind of their vision was. I always do what I call reverse marketing 101. Why are you there? What do you want to spend? And what are you trying to accomplish? Which goes back to Brian's what I'm sorry, I'm losing what it was called.
The NEI principle.
The NEI principle. I love that. Because it's so on the point. We measure KPIs and ROIs all the time as marketing people, and we say what gauges success in a live event. You all know how much it costs. It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of energy. It's just nonstop effort. And it's a whirlwind when you get there. It blows through. It's over very fast. How do you gauge and capture how you're going to give back to what that brand expected? And I would say, there's a few different ways we do that now, moving into the Web3 experience. And that's helping them build a roadmap of understanding, a roadmap of the right partners to surround themselves with in order to bring that roadmap to fruition, and to really just take hold of what you want to accomplish. Exactly what he says. If there's no inspiration behind it, then you're not going to accomplish it. What an NFT, there I'm going to say the word, an NFT is only valuable to somebody who has value to it. It has to mean something to you or to that person, or the utility behind it and the purpose behind it. The Ape Club is so successful because of the community. People want to buy the Bored Apes because they want to be on the Bored Ape Yacht Club. They want to see Eminem and Snoop Dogg drop music they've never released before, and they want to have that experience. To them, that is the experience. Take it up a notch. They dropped Jenkins, they dropped the writer's room, they did all this great marketing stuff to bring all these creatives together in a digital space that made virtual creation fun. That is experience. That is community building. And that's what we're all going to do moving forward when we start to build the roadmaps to bring all the brands into Web3, because it's not stopping. It's not a matter of, are they going to get there? It's a matter of, how are they going to get there? And how are we going to guide and educate them in the space as the leaders that are going to say, this is the road you take, because this is how many times we failed to make sure that you're successful.
On that note, tell us what the experience is like when educating brands about the possibilities with the technology, because their expectations are completely left and right. What does it take to ensure confidence from the brand for a successful investment?
I think we want to make sure we get it right. What their goals are first. Pinpoint what their goals are first. and then start in steps and phases in this integrating or even introducing a multitude of layers of what this technology can do for your brand and how to get there. That would be my first initial thought.
Anybody else?
I would say, there's a baseline education. One, brands they're smarter than we give them credit for. I'll say that they're very smart. They're keeping up. They're very familiar with what's going on right now. Now, what they do need is additional education, and so providing that base level education about what is going on inside the space, but then more specifically, how does it relate to their specific brand? So providing specific use cases for what does this mean for your brand? And every brand is different. Every retailer is different. So the use cases are going to be different. And so I would be, when we're talking to clients, we're providing specific examples for how to bring their brand to life in the space. And what does this mean for them? How does the shopper react? What does this mean for the retailers? All of these different things need to be considered. But once we get through that, they're very much open to beginning at least the discussion and the testing phases of saying, it's worth giving it a shot.
How about you, Winslow?
Yeah, I mean, education is pretty huge, both for the people spending the money and the people consuming, whatever the product is. And what their gateway to that is through advertising. I think that just like with any new form of media, you have to use something that is familiar. It can't just be totally new, because and as Brian was saying, the barrier of entry now is a lot easier. So, barrier of entry is huge, but also, what are familiar things, whether it's celebrities, like in sports, fashion, music, being able to have them as sort of a gateway into it is really helpful, because those are people that they've been, trusting, the fans of those people trust them because they've been following them, up until this point. So like having a bridge into something new is really important. But also, again, doing it in a way that doesn't feel forced. There has to be a reason for them to be doing something new and doing something that is innovating. Not just the reason for doing it itself. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of potential. And, as we also found too, there's all sorts of new, we're entering a new stage of what, an influencer, a celebrity is. It's very different than what it was 10 years ago. But we should also be embracing it, as much as I don't sort of, let's just say sometimes the word influencer can rub me the wrong way. These are the people who are opening up a lot of people's eyes. People like podcasts, I would say artists, weren't a thing, 10, 15 years ago. People who command an Instagram crowd of 10 million was just not something we were even talking about 10 years ago. But those are the people, and YouTube stars or Twitch stars, there's a whole new type of media out there that we also need to embrace and use that momentum to be able to bring people on to understanding why, Web3 in particular is something that is not going away and that will be adopted and, for so many different reasons.
Mm-hmm. And so what are the considerations that need to be taken for helping a brand achieve both short-term successes with the current maturity level of where these technologies are at, but as well as being simultaneously set up for success in the long term with the current investments that they're making?
I mean, I think one of the big things is to properly align on expectations. So one of the biggest expectations is this may not have a huge impact on your business today. It's going to have a huge impact on your business tomorrow. We just know based on where the communities are developing, how demographics are changing, how generations are even using technology, and where purchasing power will be. It's going to shift. And so how does a brand prepare today for what's going to happen tomorrow? And that's why, the relative risk for them to get in now, yes, it may not have a huge impact. We may have, a big viral success, and that's fantastic. That shouldn't be the expectation. The expectation is, how do we help capture the audiences and the communities of tomorrow, that's when we're going to have really big success. But you need to start putting together your strategies and begin testing and learning and what works and what doesn't today.
Yeah, you agree
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Amanda.
No, I think it might be frozen a little. I completely agree with that. I think that building generational wealth in long-term game is a lot more of something we need to start to roadmap out for those brands and those companies that need to really take hold of how to move that needle forward for themselves.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it only works if everyone's sort of a part of it. If the ecosystem is supporting it, because one brand trying to do it, it's not really going to work. If everyone leans in and also understands the utility, and I think that oftentimes, it's sort of been overshadowed by, I'll say it, the N-word, NFTs here. But people through this have understood, as soon as you start hooking up your wallet and realizing how easy it is, once you have everything set up, your foundation is set up through either your phone or your browser, it just makes so much more sense. And people's experiences will change once they see the ease of use, and it starts influencing their daily life. I think that that's where things will start gaining more momentum, and they'll be sort of like it'll reach like a critical mass, and it will be something that we'll be remembering when we'll be laughing at the time before we were. It was ubiquitous in our daily life.
Yeah, influencing your daily life, having utility in your daily life, that is the key to consumer adoption past those that are kind of already paying attention to this industry. Like, how do we reach that third tier market who doesn't really care about this tech but cares about experiencing cool things or making their lives easier in some way, shape, or form. And we need to reach those type of applications and activations. And brands are a big part of pushing that needle forward. And to touch on what you said, Brian, in terms of these like grandiose ideas that don't necessarily have to be implemented and executed now, but strategically planned for on the roadmap. I think I heard someone say earlier on in one of the panels, just plug 3D in these early stages. You can plug 3D into existing platforms that people are already using and see how that works. See how it works in Instagram and the TikToks, and Google's already doing it within their own search engine. And there are metrics to measure that success, and then and be able to iterate off of those trial and errors and see what works. Oh, hi, Julie. I have one last question for whoever wants to answer it. If you guys had like a dream like brand activation, what would it be if budgets were endless?
For my aspect, we just did it for M&M's. We created the music lounge. That was an augmented reality experience. It was a digital twin of an in real life experience at different music festivals around the country. And we created that experience where it's a WebXR experience. I mean, it doesn't kind of get much better than working with a brand like that.
Any last words from any of you guys before we let Julie go? No.
Thanks everyone for being on the panel.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Until next time, have a good evening or afternoon wherever you are.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. We finally have my co-host back with me today.